So unless you've been living under a rock or maybe the Tower of London, you've seen the news about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce getting engaged. Okay, Heather, but can you tie that to Tudor England? Hmm. Can I tie Taylor and Travis to Tudor England? Challenge accepted. Let's do it. Okay, to start with, Swifties everywhere are decoding lyrics and outfits and jewelry and every little thing and turning it into an Easter egg about love, right? But here's the thing, that obsession with clues in a relationship, the Tudors were doing it centuries ago. Courtiers used to analyze every motto that Henry VIII wore at a joust, every color of ribbon on a knight's sleeve, every pageant costume, looking for hidden meanings about who was in favor, who was in lurv, who might be falling out. And while Tudor history is usually full of tragic romances, I actually did a whole episode called Bad Romance. There's beheadings, annulments, heartbreak. You might be surprised to know that there were actually some really decent guys in the 16th century. Women didn't always have to settle for a Henry VIII type or a Duke of Norfolk Thomas Howard type. So let's meet a few of the men who, by Tudor standards, remember Tudor standards, actually gave their wives and their daughters their Travis Kelce moment. Hey friend, welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather. So normally on Wednesdays, I release my full episode for the week, my full podcast episode, which this week is on the daughters of Edward IV and Elizabeth Woodville. But last week we did the sisters, this week we're doing the daughters. But there was some news yesterday that broke that had me a little bit distracted, too distracted to research and write the full episode. So that's going to come tomorrow. And today we are going to talk about happy endings and strong Tudor women who didn't settle and waited for their Travis Kelce equivalent. So I'm very lucky that I get to be married to my Travis Kelce equivalent. It's been almost 19 years and it's still mostly romantic. But I did have to kiss a lot of frogs before I married him. And I got married a little later. And that couple points in my 20s, I thought, I don't know if I'm ever going to meet the guy. And I can imagine that Taylor Swift possibly felt the same things. I'm very happy that she gets her Travis Kelce. But to pull this back to Tudor England, we are going to talk today about the women who were raised to wait for their own Travis Kelce equivalent, and the fact that not all Tudor romances ended in beheadings. So let's get into it. The stereotype is easy to understand. Tudor women weren't exactly swimming in happy endings. Henry VIII married 6 times. We all know how that turned out for most of them. Catherine Howard's teenage tragedy, Anne Boleyn's downfall, Catherine of Aragon's 20 years of loyalty repaid with exile. These aren't exactly Disney fairy tales. It's easy to assume that Tudor women were doomed to miserable marriages, political pawns with no say in their own future. But not every story ended in disaster. Hidden among the wreckage are stories of genuine partnership, affection, and respect. They are rare, but they prove that not all Tudor women had to settle. So first up, we're going to talk about William Cecil and Mildred Cooke. William Cecil, Lord Burleigh, Elizabeth I's most trusted advisor. If you only know him as the powerful statesman who helped Elizabeth to keep her throne, you might be surprised to learn that at home he had a remarkably solid and respectful marriage. His wife, Mildred Cooke, was one of the most educated women of her time. She grew up in a humanist household where her father believed that girls should be just as well educated as boys. Crazy! When she married William Cecil, he didn't just tolerate her intellect, he celebrated it, the way Travis Kelce celebrates the success of his future wife. Anyway, they created a household together where scholarship was valued, their children grew up surrounded by books and teachers and serious conversation. Their daughter Anne went on to marry Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford, and while that marriage itself was a nightmare, Anne was accomplished and respected thanks to the environment that her parents created for her. So while Henry VIII was busy tearing through marriages like tissues, William Cecil was at home cheering on his brilliant wife and building a real partnership. That is a Travis move if I've ever seen one. Next up, Thomas More and his daughters. Another man who stands out in the Tudor landscape is Sir Thomas More. Like, don't get me wrong, this guy has some serious flaws, including, like burning Protestants, which is a pretty major red flag. But when it came to his family, especially his daughters, More was unusually progressive for the time. He believed that girls deserved the same education as his son, and he made sure that they got it. His daughter, Margaret Roper, became famous across Europe for her learning and especially her skill in Latin. More and Margaret wrote letters back and forth, and their correspondence shows not just respect, but genuine affection. Humanist scholars like Erasmus even praised the More daughters, which tells you just how remarkable it was at the time. At home, Thomas More was known to be playful and affectionate, creating a family environment that was unusually warm by Tudor standards. Again, all of this is by Tudor standards, right? So, yes, he was a complicated, problematic figure in a lot of ways, but in terms of supporting and encouraging the women in his life, especially his daughters, definitely closer to Travis Kelce than Henry VIII. Next up, Gilbert Talbot and Mary Cavendish. Now let's talk about a couple who don't usually make the history books, but whose letters give us an incredible window into a marriage that seems, dare I say it, happy? Gilbert Talbot, the 7th Earl of Shrewsbury, was married to Mary Cavendish, the daughter of the formidable Bess of Hardwicke. Their surviving correspondence shows a tenderness that feels very unusual for the era. The two worked together managing their estates, with Mary having real influence and agency in their household. Compared to the loveless, transactional marriages that were the norm, Gilbert and Mary's partnership shines out as something very genuine. So while not every Tudor man was rushing into the lists with a love token on his sleeve, Gilbert Talbot clearly wasn't afraid to let the world know how much he adored his wife. That again is some Travis energy right there. Proud and public and affectionate. Next up, Sir Philip Sidney, soldier, courtier, poet, basically the Elizabethan equivalent of a rock star. He's most famous for his sonnet sequence, Astrophel and Stella, inspired by Penelope Devereux, the woman that he loved but couldn't marry. But when he did marry Frances Walsingham, the daughter of Francis Walsingham, Elizabeth I's spymaster, their relationship appears to have been actually genuinely affectionate. Sidney's poetry often emphasized not just beauty, but the intellect and the spirit of women. That perspective was rare, and it suggests that he valued women beyond their dynastic worth. After Sidney's untimely death from a battle wound, Battle of Zutphen, Frances was devastated, and she never stopped honoring his memory. She would later marry again, but her care in preserving Sidney's legacy shows the depth of their bond. So if anyone in Tudor England was going to write heartfelt love notes, sprinkle Easter eggs in every sonnet, and make sure the whole world knew who his muse was, it was Philip Sidney. So yes, the Tudors gave us plenty of disastrous marriages. Henry VIII's marital carnage alone could fill a Netflix series, and I mean it has. But it wasn't all tragedy. Some women really did find partners who respected and supported and even adored them. From William Cecil cheering on Mildred Cooke's brilliance, to Thomas More investing in his daughter's education, to Gilbert Talbot writing love letters, and Philip Sidney pouring his heart into his poetry, these stories show us that even in the 16th century, women didn't have to settle. And if you squint just a little bit, you can see some parallels to Taylor and Travis today. Because whether it's a jewel in a love letter or a friendship bracelet in the VIP tent, sometimes the good guys really do make themselves known. And just a quick PSA, if you're single and you want a Travis Kelce equivalent, I mean, maybe you're single and you don't want one. Totally great too. I was single for most of my 20s and didn't even want a Travis Kelce equivalent because I was doing stuff. But if you are looking for a Travis Kelce equivalent, do not settle, right? I remember when I was in high school, a friend told me that my standards were too high because I didn't date in high school. Not very much. And I remember bemoaning the state of my lack of love life. And she said, "You know, Heather, your standards are just too high. You're looking for a guy who just doesn't exist." He didn't exist in my high school. He existed in San Diego. And so you should never, ever, ever settle. And life is too short to be with somebody who doesn't light you up most of the time. Nobody's going to light you up all of the time because that's unrealistic. I'm sure Travis Kelce doesn't even light Taylor up all of the time. But life is too short to be with somebody who doesn't light you up most of the time. So that is my contribution to all of the Taylor Travis stuff that's going on the interwebs today, and bringing it back to Tudor history, because that is what I do. I bring stuff back to Tudor history. I just had to, put in this little Taylor Travis. I'm excited. I clearly have issues. Anyway, I hope you're having an amazing day. Remember, my friend, you are deeply loved. I'm so glad I share the planet with you. You make the world a better place, and I'm glad we get to spend this time talking about Tudor history together. If you want to keep watching Tudor content on good romances, here is an episode I did a couple of years ago on Honor Lyle. I'm actually going to be updating that episode with a new one soon because there's a new book Amy License has out on Honor Lyle, and there's some great information on that. So I'm going to revisit her in a little bit. But she also had a very loving relationship with Arthur Plantagenet. So if you want to listen to Melita Thomas from Tudor Times talking about her from maybe 10 years ago, she was their person of the month. Check that out. Here is a video that YouTube thinks that you will enjoy. Thank you, my friend, for being here on a day that we are all, I'm sure, still processing and recovering from this news that broke. I'll be back with a podcast episode tomorrow. In the meantime, don't forget to drink your water. All right. Bye, friend.